All right, so here we don't have the NAS I just built because I left it over there. So insert picture of NAS here. This is a 100 terabyte, 20 gigabit DIY NAS that I've built at the end of 2024 for less than 1,200 US dollars or 1,900 Australian dollars. This is probably a fifth of the price, or about a fifth of the price of any commercial solution you can buy that has these same characteristics. Now, how did I do it? I did it with lots of research. I've picked out very specific pieces that can achieve what I want, mostly from AliExpress. And in the end, I paid only about $500 because I had some existing hard drives in my NAS that I sold to build this. So check this out. All right, then let's get into this inventory before it gets too bloody hot in here. So having a look at what we got, first up is the case. For that, good old Johnsbow. In this instance, we went with the N2. Now, these have become very popular in the recent couple of years, but the N2 works for us for a number of reasons. We only need 5 drives and the SSD. We want it to be space efficient. We wanted something that wasn't too loud, which also, speaking of loud, which also fits with the 5 drives. And of course, cost is always a factor. So the Johnsbow N2 is quite a nice, very effective 5-bay NAS with a Spot Fira SSD. It's got USB-C and USB-A on the front, which is great for ingest. Lots of ventilation, rubber base, big, what looks like 120mm fan. Spot for a power supply here, which I've completely forgot, but I think I might have one nearby I can pinch. And you've got a half-height PCIe slot, which is very important for this build. So this case is a very key component that I'm very happy with. Next up, we've got the main board. So the case was $155.99 Australian from AliExpress with free shipping. Links for all of this stuff will be below. Next up, I've got an AliExpress main board. Now, this brand, I'm pretty certain, is what's running this system, recording it right now. I bought another main board from them. I recorded a video. Oh, this focus is giving me the shits. Is that good? That'll do. Recorded it, I've just never posted it. It's actually a server main board with like 64 gig RAM, piles of SSDs as a recording and kind of Docker development machine. So I thought I'd buy one of theirs. Now it needed to be X99 because I've got a CPU that matches. It needed to be ITX so that it can fit in this case. And it also, it's rattling. I also, of course, wanted a few features. I wanted a PCIe slot, you'll see why. I wanted USB 3, C and A on the back is ideal, but also the header pins for that front connection we've got here. Onboard M2 is always a bonus, whether I'm going to have the OS boot drive on there, which I probably will, or a Wi-Fi card. Dual RAM, so we can take advantage. Sorry, dual RAM slot, so we can take advantage of the dual channel capabilities of the CPU. And of course, we've got 6 SATA ports. So we have the 5 for the main drives, and we're going to have 1 extra for an SSD cache. Now, the board here isn't the worst quality, isn't the best. I mean, this cost $142.69 and had free shipping. So for an X99 board with all those features, holy hell, I just saw it's got a full-size M2. So you can have OS drive and Wi-Fi. I think I'm going to do that. It's, you know, it's very, very full-featured. And of course, it includes 1 SATA cable for some odd reason and the back plane, which is important. So we now have, let's get that out of the way. We have our main board. For that, we needed some RAM. Now, I've got RAM on the way. That's ECC. I got 2 8-gig sticks, so 16 gig total for $14.94 with free shipping from AliExpress. That's all I need. I've got 2 non-ECC 4-gig sticks to throw in it for now, just to put it together, because AliExpress, well, these last orders from AliExpress seem to be on a boat, taking forever to get here. I ordered them weeks ago, and they've even given me free coupons to account for the delayed delivery. Now, RAM, you probably have DDR4 lying around. Is this DDR4? DDR3. Yeah, pretty sure it's DDR3. It's basically free these days, but I wanted 16 gig and I wanted ECC. I could have gone 32 gig, but I don't think I'll ever use it. It's just enough to run the operating system. Could have honestly gone to 8 gig. I wanted 2 of them for dual channel efficiency. Wanted ECC because my data is very important to me. But cheap as chips. Now, PCIe bit. X520 DAs2. These very, very common. Intel discontinued, but you can still get them in all sorts of form factors. So it's an 8X, half height, dual 10 gig copper. Here's my mate. I gotta go. I'll get back to this later on. Cheers, folks. Turns out it wasn't him, it was some looky-loo pulling in. Anyway, so very tried and true, very high compatibility, very cheap. This dual 10 gigabit copper RJ45 NIC was $24.82 with free shipping. I've even had some before under $20 on AliExpress. Heatsink is a must-have. 8X is a must-have. I think PCIe 2.0 8X has enough throughput, but again, cheap. So we've got server processor, ECC RAM, ITX mainboard with USB 3, M.2, dual RAM, PCIe, case with everything that it needs. The last things that go in it are the CPU, of course. I had a spare, what is this, E52630 lying around from an NVR I upgraded like 3 years ago. But you can get an even better one for $12.59 on AliExpress, and I'll put a link to that below as well. We then have the SSD that I mentioned. I got a good deal on this. I grabbed a pile of these. This is a refurbished 1.6 terabyte Intel data center SSD. So this is going to be our fast access cache, and these I got for 85 bucks each. You can usually find them online pretty cheap. I'll put a link to this guy's eBay store where he had these, but I'll also put a link to another place, Server Parts Deals, that sometimes has them very cheap too. So 3 of these I'm already using a RAID 5 array. This is my hot spare for the array. Might as well be a fast cache in the meantime. Lastly, we have the big cost. These are manufacturer recertified 20 terabyte Western Digital drives. Now, these are technically what were the HGST. God, I failed at that. These were what used to be HGST, and what I was looking for here was performance. Of course, money. These were 389 Australian each, plus I ended up paying 198 shipping and handling. Now these specifically, I'll put the page up here, have a really high throughput rate. I currently have 12 terabyte WD purples. They're limited to something like, I think it might be 195 megasecond. And even with the RAID array, it's just not enough. These do something like 295 megasecond, and I'm gonna have the SSD cache. They might even be faster than that, and the RAID array adds a bit of speed as well, as long as the processor and everything can keep up with it. I need 300 megasecond for the throughput for working live off the NAS. This should hit it. So realistically, the purples I've got with a 2.5 gigabit link, so more than enough, I can get something like, I think 270 megabits, so nearly, but I'm getting stutter in my workflow. This will easily crack 300 megabit, and of course we will benchmark it and see that. So 3 of these I'm going to put in RAID 5. Now I know that's not quite 100 terabytes, but there's still 2 bays free. You could put 5 of these drives in there and have 100 terabytes. You could put bigger drives in there, you could put less of bigger drives in there and have 100 terabytes with the redundancy, but it is essentially a 100 terabyte build. I just didn't buy all the drives yet, so I don't know, I clickbaited you, whatever. Moving on. Heatsink, I've got that on the way as well. I think this one's compatible. It's from a 1155, should be 80 mil by 80 mil, otherwise I'll figure something out in the meantime because that was also delayed. So we have all up $1,800 or $1,801.21 that has been spent on this. Minus the CPU, which I already had, was about 12 bucks. Minus the power supply, you should always be able to get a cheap ITX power supply or small form factor power supply from your local IT provider that probably have some lying around. I have piles of them lying around, they're just hard to ship. Else they're gonna be about 10 bucks online. Now, the 12 terabyte drives, I'm actually selling tomorrow, which is why I'm building this right now unexpectedly on a Monday. I'm selling them for 400 each, which is a pretty good deal. Giving them a 90-day warranty because that's fair enough. All the drives are in perfect health, but that does then shave the $1,200 back off this cost. So all up, I'm spending, what's that going to be, $1,580, no, less than $500. I'm spending $500 to build what's effectively a 40 terabyte NAS with a server processor, server RAM, USB 3, and 20 gigabit of LAN throughput. I think that's pretty fucking excellent. So I'm going to get assembling. Time-lapse time, I guess. Now, before you go crapping on, I'm going to be using 120 gig SATA SSD because it is compatible and it's just the OS. It doesn't need to be fast, and I don't really have another use for a SATA SSD. I'd rather use an NVMe SSD and something that's more important. I also have AX210 SS Wi-Fi card I'm going to put in here because I don't have a LAN cable nearby. These are available in the store like a few of these other things that I'm going to use. I'll put links to those below or a card up here or something. All right, back to the build montage. All right, so I've ran into my first hurdle, which is when I didn't really think it very through. I do have two processors available. I've got the E3-1225V3, and I've got the one I was just talking about, which is the E5-2630. Now, as far as I know, this is 2011, so it would go in this socket, but this is a DDR3 CPU. This is a DDR4 board that I bought, so the RAM obviously is not compatible. And with that, of course, this heatsink's not going to be compatible. So I will have to drop back to the office and grab another CPU. I'm pretty certain I have another 2011 around that should support DDR4. Yeah, I know where one is. And whilst I'm there, I'll also have to grab some more RAM. So I'll build the rest of it for now, except for that bit. Now, annoyingly, it looks like there is not actually a front USB Type-C connector, so I'm not sure what I'll do about that, but at least we do have the Type-A interface. I may end up like running it out the back and getting an adapter to plug it into the rear one, which we've got here and probably won't use. Or I could get a M2, that should have at least one PCIe interface. I may get an M2 adapter because I won't need Wi-Fi in the end. So for now, I'm just going to leave that tucked out of the way. That's the top part done, so let's get some drives and into it, try to find a power supply. And we've got a few minutes till my mate gets here. I might crack a beer preemptively because it is warm. Gotta say, I'm loving this little thing to just pause and change focus and everything like that. Made it in the last video. I think it'll be the last video when this one comes out. It makes my life easy. But yes, 34 degrees in the workshop right now, so in the speed run bits, I've got the fan blasting me. It's blowing hot air on me, but it's better than nothing. This will definitely help. Cheers, folks. Oh, that's the stuff. All right, for now we're going to leave it there. I'm going to have to take the top case off again to feed the power for the main board and the CPU through to the top. I do have to go to the office and get some SATA cables, a new CPU and some RAM to go with it. I will have a look for another power supply whilst I'm there, but this will at least allow me to run this and get the data off those drives that I need to sell. And we'll see how that goes in the coming times. Catch you shortly. All right, folks, we're back, and it's been a few days because I had to get myself together pretty much. We now have some DDR4 ECC server RAM that I had lying around. There's just two 4 gig sticks, which should be plenty. We have a E5-2620V3 CPU. So the issue was I grabbed Haswell stuff, didn't realize, because X99 can be Haswell or Haswell EP, which means it's DDR3 or DDR4. I got a X99 DDR4 main board, and then which supports Haswell EP, for example, but I had Haswell. So almost the same process, like the code is E5-2620 versus E5-2620V3, but all sorted now. We have a proper power supply for everyone that was freaking out before when I was cramming that other one in. And I have a heatsink. Now, there's obviously a issue with the amount of space we have here. So I will, as terrible as it sounds, cut this heatsink. All I'm going to do, measure where I need it to be. They're a pretty straightforward server heatsink that depend on airflow going through the side. So I'll cut it with the angle grinder at the right height, and then I'll pinch these closed and just tack a bit of solder on there, and we should be right to go with that. I'll probably mount like a 40mm fan on the side too. It does have airflow in here, but I always want a little bit more. If it thermally throttles, that's fine too. So back to the build montage. Well, it's 35 degrees, so it's officially this time. And that is an ugly as hell heatsink, but it's my ugly as hell heatsink. I know it's heat sinking because it's really hard to solder this. I tried to clean them up a little bit, gave up, just gave it a quick little sand down. Now also cut this slightly narrower, as you saw it barely fit before. And if you notice it's not quite square anymore, you can see there quite obviously, because it's not. It angle grinding it, or cutting it with a cutting disc on the angle grinder, actually desoldered this entire thing. So I had to resolder it. It wasn't quite straight because I didn't even try really. But now we have our heatsink. Let's finish the build. Oop, forgot to hit record. Good old bit of Arctic silver there. Alright, so you might freak out, but I'm just using a silicone band to attach the fan. Reason is that I do, as I said, have a proper heatsink on the way that would fit. This fits on the side anyway. It's not a 4-pin, it does have the sensor pin though. I'm not sure what the 4th pin is for, actually I can't remember. But everything is fitting in quite nicely. I'm quite happy with this. So, don't have a wobbly in the comments. It isn't perfect, but it is functional. Or do have a wobbly in the comments, actually. YouTube likes that. Alright, so that's getting close to done. If you watched any of the time lapse, you'll see we did have a bit of an issue. In here, the SATA connectors pointing outwards are actually hitting this front panel, and there's not really much we can do about it unless we somehow get shorter SATA connectors. And I've got some somewhere, actually. I've got this one, which I'll swap the orange one for since it's so tight, but it does kind of rule out using the bottom port in there unless I can find something that's really, really suited for it. So since we're only going to be putting 3 drives in it for now anyway, I just thought I'll leave that one unplugged. So drives 1, 2, 3, and 4 are plugged in, and the SSD is plugged in. But you can see here, 5 I've left disconnected. Because I might change it later when I get more SATA cables, I'm also not going to bother too hard with, I just realized my fan's on, sorry for the background noise. I'm not going to bother too hard with full cable management at this point, like neatening it all up. One, it doesn't really matter. It's not like it's a transparent case that you can see inside and be criticized for, but just for the sake of making it easier in the future when I do actually want to change it. If it's all tidied, I'm going to have to undo all of the cables and cable ties and everything like that, and it's just a whole pain that I don't need to deal with, so not going to happen. I'll just cram that in there. There's a nice mesh on here so the cables aren't going to get into it. All right, folks, there we have it. That is my essentially 100 terabyte, 20 gigabit X99 based Johnsbow N2 NAS. It'll have TrueNAS on it. I'm going to run with the SSD cache, and we have the 3 drives in there at the moment. It's going to be 20 gigabit, that's LACP 2 10 gigabit ports with the X520 DA2s. We've got our modular SFX power supply, and we've got our Type-C on the back because we didn't have a connector on the main board for the front. So a few little lessons there for you to learn if you build your own. I think it was exceptionally easy. I can't power it on and test it here because I don't actually have a screen to plug into it, believe it or not. But I will test it at home because I'm going to start moving all my data over to it. So I hope you learned something new from this. I hope you're all having a great weekend. See you next time.